All right, welcome back to the Beyond the Field YouTube channel. Over the last 4 weeks, I've been talking to you about the Beyond framework, and I started with belonging. Belonging is the first part of the Beyond framework. This is what I use when I am consulting and coaching different staffs and people in player development. So we're moving to the next phase of Beyond, and that is the E, and the E is for education. So Beyond is an acronym for the B is for belonging, E is for education, the Y is your purpose, the O is opportunities, the N is navigation, and the D is development systems. And so we'll spend the next 4 weeks diving into education. And I enjoy doing this. I enjoy taking my time and spending time with you all. And for you all who are interested in bringing me in, and we're going through all this and workshop, we can do it in person, virtually, whatever it may be. That link is in the show notes for you. All right, so now let's talk about education. Let's talk about the education piece of the Beyond framework. Now, when I mentioned education, the thing I love about this is one of the big things I value in my life, and as I raise my family and I'm with other people and athletes and things like that, is education. You can be a lifelong learner. You can always continue to learn. And so when we talk about education, the education that I'm talking about is the education that happens outside of what they're already learning. So I was at the college football level, right? And I was the director of player development at the University of Houston, University of Kansas, and Baylor University. And so these athletes were getting an education on campus. They had their majors, they had all those things. I was also a high school coach. These students student athletes were getting their education once again on the campus. And so this education is an education that we want to have from our program. What do we want to educate? What are these pivotal learning opportunities, these learning foundational opportunities or learning foundational things we want to give to these athletes as they are a part of our program, right? So if I'm the director of player development, I'm sitting there talking to the coach. I'm sitting there finding out from the head coach, administrators, what do we want? Like, what do we want to teach these athletes? And so this is the education piece that we're talking about here. All right, here are a couple quotes from studies. I love quotes. I love stats on education. First one here says, students who participate in structured learning programs are more likely to retain information and apply what they've learned compared to passive learning environments. That's from the National Training Laboratories. And so what that shows right there is if we can be intentional on what we want to teach our athletes, they can retain it. A lot of people say, well, more is caught than taught. I'm a big believer you can catch stuff, but I'm also a believer. I was a teacher and a coach for 12 years of my life, right? And I still teach and coach now, so I guess most of my life, right? And the big thing for me is you can literally teach what you want people to retain and apply, right? That passive, well, they're going to understand responsibility. They're going to understand, leadership. They're going to understand accountability. They're going to understand. No, we have to teach them that. So being intentional, that's the big word right there. Intentionally structured, right? We want to structure our programs. All right, and then this this quote is from Gallup. Learners are more engaged and more likely to complete development programs when content is structured, interactive, and intentionally designed. Structured, interactive, and intentionally designed. And so who am I talking to right now when I'm saying this education? I'm talking to the people who are doing player development in your program, but I'm also talking to coaches. I'm talking to athletic directors as well. You see it, that says right there, structured, interactive, and intentionally designed, right? When you have those programs that are like that can develop people, they're more engaged. They're more engaged and more likely to complete what you want to do. Sorry, I just get excited because it's always like, hey, this is what it is, right? But they're more engaged. They're more engaged, right? And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have an educational aspect in our program. We don't want to say, hey, the university's taking care of that. We're just going to coach our sport. There's a lot of opportunity to continue to teach what you want your athletes to learn. And so whenever I go into these settings with coaches, with athletic directors, with staff members, I ask questions. So the big thing with Beyond the Field, what I did worked for me at 3 universities, right? And the framework is there, but I want you to answer the questions because I tell people all the time, what I did at one university didn't work at the next university. At the University of Houston, we had 3 head coaches in my 3 years there. We had Tom Herman, who was head coach. He went to Texas. Todd Orlando was our interim head coach for a week. He went to Texas, and then Coach Major White got the job, right? And he was our head coach for 2 years. And so even in those spans, those 3 individuals in that time, everything looked different. So you want to ask questions and answer questions. So you always make sure that you're doing what's best for the athletes there. I tell people all the time, do it at the end of the year. So before you get into the season, once the season's over with, take a little time. But as you have that new roster, ask those questions again, because the program you did last year, the stuff you did last year, may not work, or may not be as effective. It's going to work, but may not be as effective, or it needs to be changed. So you need to do those things. So the first question we want to ask when we're reflecting on education and what we want to teach our athletes is, what do you want your athletes to learn during their time in your program? What do you want them to learn during your time in your program? If you're a high school coach watching this, you have a lot of time. You have a lot of time with those athletes. And I always ask high school coaches, what do you want this athlete to say 5 years from now? I learned this from this program, right? 5 years from now. For you all on a collegiate level, right? No matter what sport you're in, the transfer portal is crazy, right? So you have 6 months. You got a lot of athletes on 6-month leases. But even with that, what do you want them to learn during that time? They're under your care. Yes, when I was in it, you had, 4 to 5 years, right? 3 to 5. I had some pretty good players that got out of 3 years. You have 3 to 5 years to develop the athlete. But the question doesn't change your intention, right? The time is a time, right? What do you want them to learn in the time that you have them? So that is a question you definitely need to answer. The next question is, where is your current programming intentional and where is it random? This is a good one. Where is it intentional? We intentionally do these things in player development. We're intentional with our mentorship. We're intentional with our newcomer transition. We're intentional with community impact, right? But where's the randomness? Well, career development, we kind of figure it out. It kind of works. We just go to career fairs and guys have luckily got jobs, whatever it may be, right? Where is your programming intentional? Where is it random? And you can sit down and have this conversation. This is something I want to teach them. This is what I've learned. I've looked at our team and I've identified the things that they need to learn. Okay, we need to learn this. We are struggling in this. We're going to learn this. We're going to go, right? And you may say after that, okay, I want to be intentional in this area, right? Because randomness can find success. I've been random in the role myself and found success. But intentionality creates impact, right? Success is nice, but I want impact. I want deep impact. So you want to sit down and see where you can be intentional. And then one thing I always tell people in the role, get with that head coach. Get with that head coach and sit down and say, hey, coach, I feel like when we're educating athletes, and I've heard you mention this, and this is my heart as well, I feel like we're very intentional here, but sometimes we're random here, right? If you're a head coach, your high school head coach watching this, or if you're an athletic director watching this, you may be saying, you know what? Yeah, there's some times I'm intentional, and then there's some times I'm random. But you need to figure that out. You need to identify that. And then the last question you want to reflect when you're talking about education is, how are you aligning your program with what coaches want for their athletes? This is specifically for the person who's in the director or player development role, like I was, right? At the collegiate level, I was in that role. How am I aligning programming with what my head coach wants? I tell people all the time, they say, how do you have success in player development? It comes down to the support you have from a coach. That helps you have greater impact, greater success, right? But that coach needs to know. You don't want to just do programming and then the coach wants to go here and you're going there, right? You don't want to do that, right? You want to sit down with a coach. You want to understand what the coach is saying. What does this coach want for their athletes? If this coach wants these guys to mature, okay, we can do some program. I can find some space there. If this coach wants these guys to be better at communicating, we can find it. If he wants them to be leaders, we can find that. If he wants them to take care of themselves, like take care of you as a person first, we can find that as well, right? So you want to make sure you sit down and get with the head coach. I've even got with position coaches. What do position coaches want out of their athletes, right? Because there may be some programming pockets I can get. Oh, the quarterback coach wants this for his quarterbacks. The receiver coach wants this for his receivers. The D-line coach wants this for his D-linemen. So now I can have those questions, conversations, and programming to help be more aligned with our programming in what coaches want to do. Now, if you're a coach and you're listening to this and you're saying, oh, that's pretty cool, I don't have anybody doing player development, you may want to sit down with a coach on your staff and say, hey, coach on my staff, whoever that is, hey, this is where I want to be. This is where I want it to look like. This is where I want to educate athletes. This is where we can go. If you're a coach listening to this says, I know where I want to go. I want to lead it. Like I want to be the head coach that leads it. You may want to get with your athletic director. Hey, what are your thoughts? Where do you want to go? What values do we need to create? What education do we need there, right? And so that's what the education piece, like I said, we're going to spend the next 4 weeks talking about this pillar of Beyond the Field. And the reason why I created the Beyond framework is because all of player development could go underneath this. Everything I did in player development goes underneath this framework. And so I'm excited to dive into the next topic of education next week. If you are sitting here reading this like, oh snap, I want to get caught up, the Beyond playlist is right here. So that playlist is right there for you to get caught up until this point. And I'm really excited that you all are here. Like I said, if you want me to come to your program, help you, the link is in the show notes. Click that Beyond model assessment there. It'll tell me where you are, how I can help, and then I'll get back with you. As I always say, go out and create generational impact. Don't wait, create that generational impact today, and make sure you are educating athletes that are in your program. Have a good one.